Narrated in the voice of time, or memory walks with bare feet through stone-paved streets and the air still carries the scent of smoke and rye, we begin our tale. It is the year of our Lord, 1374. In a village wrapped in mist and timbered rooftops, nestled within the Shire of Wessex, there lives a man by the name of Edric Thorne, a baker, born of flour and fire. His shop, known to the locals as the Hearth of St. Agnes, sits near the edge of the village square, where muddy tracks converge and oxen grunt in morning toil. There, beneath a roof of thatch and blackened chimney, the dance of fire and dough begins long before even the roosters dare to stir. The world is quiet still. Not even the dogs bark. The moon lingers low, and the stars, reluctant to leave, flicker their last wishes above. Within the baker's humble cottage, silence shivers, then, the creak of floorboards, the shift of weight, the soft sound of skin against wool. Edric wakes. His bones ache, for he is no longer a young man. His beard is dusted with gray like the first frost upon a field, and the calluses on his hands are thick as bark. But when he moves with purpose. He rises without complaint, because this is the hour he belongs to. Before kings rise, before knights sharpen swords, before prayers echo from the chapel stone, there is bread. And where there is bread, there is the baker. Edric steps outside into the dark. The air is thick with dew, and the night smells of wet earth and fading embers. His breath fogs in front of him, caught briefly in moonlight. He makes his way toward the bakehouse, a separate structure behind his home, built of stone with a domed oven at its center. The oven, called Brunhild, after his mother's name, is still warm from the night before. He whispers to it like an old friend. He always does. There is something sacred in fire that has never fully died. Inside the bakehouse, he lights his tallow lamp. The flame flickers to life, dancing like a spirit caught in a jar. Shadows cling to the timbered walls and to the sacks of flour stacked neatly in the corner. Each sack is marked by the miller's sigil, a crescent moon carved into wax. The flour is coarse, the grind not perfect, but it carries the heart of the grain. His apprentice, a quiet lad named Tomlin, is still asleep in the loft above. Edric does not wake him. There are rituals to be done alone. He fills the wooden trough with warm water drawn from the kettle, then begins to mix the leaven, a starter he's kept alive for 14 winters. It is a bubbling, living creature, smelling faintly sour and strong, like wine forgotten in a monk's cellar. He adds flour and salt, the proportions known by feel, not by weight. He kneads in silence, the dough fighting him at first, but he does not relent. His arms move like pistons, his shoulders straining as he folds and presses, folds and presses. Outside, the sky begins to pale. A robin sings its first note. It is morning's breath. The dough now softens, submitting to his hands. And then, the voice of a boy. "Master Edric?" Tomlin's voice cracks with sleep. "You're late," Edric says without turning. "I dreamt of a dragon eating barley," the boy yawns, climbing down barefoot from the loft. "Did the dragon like it?" "No. He said it was too bitter." "Then he has poor taste." They both chuckle. Edric teaches not just by words, but by rhythm. The lad is only 12, but already his fingers know the feel of risen dough, the patience required to wait, the way flour dusts the soul. Together, they portion the loaves. Round for the peasants, long for the merchants, braided for the nobles in the manor to the east. Each shape tells a story, a silent language of class and coin. Some will be traded for coins, others for eggs, cheese, or news. The oven is ready now. Its heat is fierce, glowing from within like a dragon's heart. Edric tests it by tossing in a pinch of flour. It burns to brown in the blink of an eye. Hot enough. They slide the loaves in, using a long wooden peel worn smooth from years of use. The smell begins to rise. Oh, that ancient perfume. Yeast and grain, salt and flame, it seeps through the cracks of the village, waking even the dead dreams of the night. Soon, the village begins to stir. The first to arrive is old Gilda, the widow who lost 3 sons to war and a husband to fire. She wears black always. She waits outside the bakehouse like a crow on the edge of memory. Edric greets her kindly and hands her a small round loaf. "Still warm," he says. "Still kind," she replies, slipping him a bundle of herbs in exchange. There is no coin between them. Only barter and a shared past they never speak of. As the sun rises higher, more come. A pig farmer named Bryn, who smells of slop and laughter. A young girl named Ellen, with a limp from birth and eyes like candlelight. A monk from the nearby priory, silent except for prayers murmured beneath his breath. Each receives their bread. Each leaves a piece of their story behind. But not all is peace. The sound of hoofs disturbs the harmony. A mounted figure in crimson livery approaches, the steward of Lord Athelmere. His face is sour, his voice sharp. "You are behind, Thorn. The manor bread is due at first light." "It is nearly ready," Edric replies, unbothered. Lord Athelmere does not tolerate delay. Then he should rise earlier. Tomlin gasps, eyes wide. The steward glares but says nothing more. He takes the bread braided and brushed with honey and rides off, leaving dust in his wake. Edric watches him go, expression unreadable. "You shouldn't provoke him," Tomlin whispers. "There are worse things than noble tempers," Edric mutters. And indeed, there are. Far to the east, rumors stir, plague in the cities, unrest among the serfs, and strange lights seen above the moors. But such things have no place in a baker's morning. Not yet. By midday, the baking is done. The fire sleeps once more, the loaves are sold or stored. Edric wipes his brow and steps outside. The sky is blue and untroubled. Birds fly without omen. Tomlin joins him, chewing on a crust of bread. "Master," the boy asks. "Aye." "Why do you wake so early, even when no one is watching?" Edric smiles faintly. His eyes drift toward the clouds. "Because bread," he says, "waits for no man." And the wind carries his words into the far hills, where storms have not yet shown their teeth. But they will. They always do. And so ends the first part of our tale, where flower met fire and silence met song. Yet the day is far from over, and as the sun begins its descent, the world will shift. For tonight, a shadow will knock upon the baker's door. And what it brings cannot be kneaded away. Let us return now to the village of Wessex, to the smoke-wreathed thatch of the hearth of St. Agnes, where flour lingers in the air like dust upon sunlight. The morning's labors have ended, the fire rests in its belly of brick, and the scent of rye and salt still clings to the walls like an old song. Edric Thorn, the baker, has washed his hands in the wooden basin outside, letting the flour-streaked water fall into earth long soaked by time and toil. His apprentice, young Tomlin, plays with a stick and a hoop in the muddy alley, laughter echoing off the stones. The day is warm now, the breeze gentle. Chickens cluck without concern. A cow bellows in the field nearby. All seems still. But something rides the wind this evening. Something unfamiliar. Edric feels it before he sees it. A weight in the bones, a whisper too faint for the ears. The hairs on his arms rise, not in fear, not yet, but in knowing. He has lived too many seasons to ignore the change in the rhythm of the world. As dusk settles like a velvet cloak, a figure appears at the edge of the square. A traveler. Tall, wrapped in a woolen cloak too fine for a commoner yet too worn for a noble. His boots are caked with dust from long roads. A sword hilt peeks from beneath his side. His face is hidden beneath the shadow of a hood, and his gait carries neither the arrogance of a knight nor the slouch of a vagabond. The villagers pause. Bryn the pig farmer halts mid-conversation. Widow Gilda grips her herb bundle tighter. Even the dogs grow quiet, ears perked. Strangers are not common here. Not in a place where generations stack atop one another like stones in a dry wall. The traveler approaches the bakehouse. Edric steps forward, his hands still red from the day's heat. "Good evening," Edric offers, his voice steady but not welcoming. "You've the look of a man in need of a meal." The traveler lifts his hood. He is younger than expected, perhaps no more than 30 winters, with a face marked by both kindness and war. A thin scar crosses his cheek. His eyes, deep-set and amber, seem to weigh the world behind them. "Aye," the man says softly. "And perhaps something more than bread, if you've it." Tomlin edges behind Edric, curiosity glowing in his young eyes. Edric studies the stranger, then nods. "Come. Sit by the hearth. The day's bread is still warm, and we've onion broth left from last night." No coin is mentioned, for in the ancient way, hospitality is law. Inside, the bakehouse feels smaller with the stranger in it. He sits cross-legged near the hearth as Edric ladles broth into a clay bowl and offers a thick crust of barley bread. The man eats like one who has known hunger well, but not with greed. He chews slowly, his eyes never leaving the flames. "You've traveled far," Edric says, leaning against the wall. "Far enough that I no longer name the lands behind me." "A poet, then. A man who has seen too many wars to rhyme." Tomlin's voice, eager and unfiltered, slips in. "Are you a knight?" The stranger does not answer immediately. Then, softly, "I was." Edric's eyes narrow. "What brings a knight, former or not, to the hearth of a village baker?" The man wipes his mouth with the back of his hand. His gaze is distant. "I seek something lost. Something buried beneath years and names." "Then you'll not find it here," Edric replies. "We've only flour and fire. No secrets." "That is where you are wrong," the knight says. "The deepest truths are often found in the quietest corners." Silence falls. Outside, the sky bruises into twilight. A bell tolls in the distance from the priory, announcing the coming of night prayer. The knight, he gives no name, reaches into his cloak and pulls out a small, wrapped bundle. He unfolds it slowly, revealing an object wrapped in linen. A piece of broken pottery, etched with a strange symbol, a circle crossed by a single line, like a sun split in two. Edric stiffens. He has not seen the symbol in years. Not since the fire at the old granary. Not since his wife. "Where did you find that?" Edric's voice is low, almost a growl. "In the ruins of Ashmore Abbey. Beneath the altar." Edric looks away. The knight watches him. "You know what it is." Tomlin, wide-eyed, looks between the two men. "It's nothing," Edric mutters. "A forgotten mark from a forgotten time. But it was carved by the same hands that shaped this village. Before it had a name. Before even St. Agnes was canonized." The knight stands slowly, towering in the low-ceilinged room. "I believe your bakehouse was built atop something old. Something sacred. Or cursed. I don't yet know which." Edric breathes through his nose. The old pain stirs again, the fire, the screams, the silence that followed. He thought he had buried it. "Leave," he says. "I've no bread for riddles." But the knight does not move. Instead, he speaks one more word. A name. Mara. Edric freezes. Tomlin's mouth opens, but no sound comes. That name has not been spoken in this village for 20 years. "Mara Thorne," the knight says softly. "Was she your wife?" Edric says nothing. Outside, the wind howls suddenly through the thatch, rattling the shutters. "You don't understand what you're stirring," Edric says finally. "Whatever you're seeking, it cost me everything." The knight nods solemnly. "Then help me end it. Help me bury it, once and for all." A long silence passes between them. Finally, Edric moves toward the shelf above the oven. He reaches behind a sack of flour and pulls down a wooden box, blackened by soot and time. Inside it, another shard of pottery, matching the knight's fragment perfectly. Tomlin gasps. "You'll stay the night," Edric says. "In the loft. Speak nothing to the villagers." "Not yet." The knight inclines his head. "Thank you, Baker." Edric closes the box with a heavy breath. "Don't thank me." The storm hasn't come yet. And outside, above the hills to the east, lightning flickers silently behind the clouds. The dawn after the stranger's arrival came soft and hesitant, as though the sun itself was unsure whether it should rise. Mist curled around the village like a serpent made of cloud. The trees along the boundary of the fields stood still, their leaves unmoving despite the eerie silence. Crows perched on fence posts, staring with obsidian eyes. Somewhere in the hills, a hound howled once, and then nothing. Inside the bakehouse, the fire had already been lit. Edric stood before it, sleeves rolled, hands thick with dough. His movements were steady, but not peaceful. His thoughts had not slept. They had wandered all night, through memory, through guilt, through the ancient name the night had spoken, Mara. Tomlin was quieter than usual, glancing up at the loft now and then, where the knight still lay resting. "He really knew her, didn't he?" the boy asked at last, his voice barely above a whisper. "Aye," Edric replied. "But not the way I did." "Who was she, master?" Edric stopped kneading. His fingers pressed into the dough, but he did not move. For a long moment, he simply stared at the mass in the trough. Then he spoke. "She was fire," he said. "Wild, bright, and impossible to hold. She knew things no one should. And she asked questions that frightened even priests." Tomlin's eyes widened. "Was she a witch?" "No," Edric said sharply. "She was wiser than that. And kinder." The bread would be late this morning, and Edric didn't care. For something deeper was stirring now, older than bread, older than the stone of the village well. Upstairs, the knight descended the ladder slowly. He had cleaned himself, bound his boots tighter. The fragment of pottery he carried hung from his belt in a leather pouch. When his eyes met Edric's, they were calm, but serious. "There's more beneath this place, isn't there?" the knight asked. Edric nodded. "Aye. Come." He wiped his hands and led the knight through the rear of the bakehouse, past the storeroom and into a narrow corridor so old the stones wept with moisture. Tomlin followed, barefoot, his curiosity outweighing fear. They stopped at a wooden trapdoor beneath a frayed rug. Edric pried it open, and the scent of dust and age rushed out like a sigh from the earth itself. "Down here," Edric said. "But step lightly. You'll be walking on bones." The cellar beneath the bakehouse was no ordinary root cellar. It was a vault, cut from ancient stone, with arches that bore the wear of centuries. Strange symbols had been carved into the walls, faint, worn by time, but still pulsing with a cold memory. And in the center, half buried in rubble, was a stone basin blackened by soot, its rim inscribed with that same sun-split symbol. The knight knelt before it. "It's older than the abbey ruins," he murmured. Edric said nothing. He simply watched. "I read of these in the priory's hidden texts," the knight continued. "The Order of the Hollow Flame. They baked bread not just for the body, but for the soul. They believed certain rituals, if performed properly, could purify darkness. That the grain, the salt, the fire all held power." Tomlin shivered. Like holy bread?" The knight nodded. "More than holy. Dangerous." Edric finally spoke. "Mara believed that too. She said this oven Brunhild was the last of the sacred hearths. That the order once had 12, scattered across the realm. All destroyed, save this one." "Why didn't you destroy it?" the knight asked. Edric looked up, sorrow in his eyes. Because she died before she could. The knight rose, his jaw clenched. I believe something escaped one of those hearts. Or perhaps, was never sealed to begin with. The symbol, this split sun, it was a warning. Light undone. Fire corrupted. Edric walked to the basin, running his hand along its edge. We used to burn herbs here, he said. Thyme, rosemary, sage. She'd chant in the old tongue. I thought it was theater. Romance. He paused. But the night she died, the fire roared so high it cracked the chimney. I found her by the basin, her arms marked with that same symbol. The knight's hand gripped the hilt at his side. And you never spoke of it to the priests? They would have called her a heretic, Edric growled. Burned her memory to ashes. No, this truth belongs to time and silence. Not men in robes. Tomlin stepped closer. Is that why you always bake before the sun rises? Edric turned to him, surprised. Yes, he said. Because light cannot enter what hasn't yet dawned. And darkness fears flame that rises before its hour. They stood in silence then. Above them, the bakehouse creaked softly. Outside, a breeze stirred the village lanes. And then, soft footsteps. More than one. Edric's eyes narrowed. He signaled, silently, for them to ascend. Upstairs, Widow Gilda stood at the doorway, her face pale. There's a rider, she said. Black cloak. From the bishop's court. He's asking questions. The knight stepped behind the curtain. Edric moved to the front, wiping his hands on his apron, pretending at normalcy. A man entered. Tall. Gaunt. Dressed in black with the insignia of the ecclesiastic guard, a silver cross wrapped in thorns. I am Brother Severan, the man said. I come on order of Bishop Redwin. We've had reports. Edric gave him a tight nod. You'll not find bread in the evening, brother. We bake in the dark. I'm not here for bread, Severin said coldly. I'm here for relics. Forbidden rites. Fragments of ancient idols. Edric kept his face still. This village has seen little of war, the monk continued, his gaze sweeping the room. But even peace can rot. I've heard whispers of symbols. Of unnatural heat. Of pilgrims drawn to this oven as if it breathes. You've heard tales, Edric said simply. Folk talk when the harvest is poor. Severan stepped closer. And you, Edric Thorn. Son of Brannock. Husband to Mara. A name buried in our records, until now. His hand hovered above his satchel. Should I find proof, he whispered, you'll burn for more than bread. He turned and left without another word. The silence he left behind was more terrible than threat. Tomlin stared after him. The knight emerged from behind the curtain. That was a warning, Edric said. No, the knight corrected. That was a spark. And outside, as the sun disappeared behind the hills, a strange wind stirred the wheat fields. It did not smell of rain. It smelled of ash. Night fell heavy over Wessex. Not merely in light, but in spirit. The kind of night that seems to press upon rooftops, that seeps into the lungs when one dares to breathe too deeply. It was a darkness thick with memory, and older than even the foundations of the hearth of St. Agnes. Inside the bakehouse, Edric, Tomlin, and the unnamed knight stood beneath a single candle's flicker. The visit from Brother Severan had shattered the calm of flour and fire. That cold, pale figure sent from the bishop's court was not a mere inquisitioner. He was a hound. And he had caught scent. He will return, the knight said flatly. And he won't come alone. Edric nodded slowly. I've faced many things in this life. A widow's scream when bread burns. A child starving when a crop fails. But Severan? He is something else. He's death, whispered Tomlin. You saw his eyes. The knight stepped closer to the hearth, gazing deep into its embers. We don't have time to hide what lies below. We must understand it. Use it. Whatever knowledge Mara had, it's still here. It lingers in the stones, in the way your oven breathes. Edric gave him a long look. And what would you do, knight? Light the fire higher? Say a prayer in a language none remember? This isn't just wood and flour. It's blood now. It's price. The knight said nothing. But Tomlin, quiet until then, stepped forward. We should read her book, he said. Edric's brow furrowed. What book? The one beneath the floorboards of the loft, Tomlin answered. I found it years ago, when I dropped a spool of twine through a crack. It was wrapped in oilcloth, sealed in wax. I didn't open it. I swear it. Edric's eyes went wide. He rushed up the ladder, tore back the corner of the loft's wooden slats. And there, as the boy had said, lay the book. It was bound in blackened leather, the edges scorched. On the cover, faint and barely legible, the same symbol appeared once more, the sun split by a single line. The mark of the Order of the Hollow Flame. With trembling hands, Edric brought the book down and placed it upon the flour-dusted table. The candlelight danced across its cover like breath on water. He opened it. The scent of age hit first ink, smoke, and herbs long since turned to dust. Inside, the words were written in Mara's hand, her delicate script, the very curl of her letters like the swirl of a wind across a snowy field. Edric's breath caught. For a moment, it felt as though she stood behind him again. She wrote in both tongues, he whispered. The common and the old. The knight leaned in. Can you read it? Enough to understand, Edric replied, flipping to a page marked with a faded green ribbon. The passage read, Asterisk when the 13th moon rises in a year of ash, the hearth will awaken. Fire shall call to fire. Only bread kneaded in the shadow of truth shall seal the wound beneath the world. Asterisk. They were silent. Then Tomlin asked the question none wanted to answer. What is the wound beneath the world? The knight answered grimly. A gate. One that should have never opened. A distant rumble broke the silence. Not thunder. Drums. Echoing from the road. Edric bolted toward the shutters. In the distance, beneath the half-lit moon, torches danced on the road leading to the village. A dozen riders, clad in black, marched in silence. And at their center, Brother Severan. They're coming tonight, Edric growled. He's not waiting for permission. Tomlin looked to the knight. What do we do? The knight gripped his pouch. We prepare the bread. Edric turned to him, incredulous. You want to bake? I want to seal, the knight said. That basin below? It's not just an altar. It's a gate. The ritual your wife began, we must finish it. You said it cost her everything. Let it cost me. Edric paused. Then, without another word, he moved toward the sack of grain. But not the common flour. He opened a hidden compartment in the back wall, revealing a small bag of golden flour, finer than silk, faintly glowing in the dark. What is that? Tomlin whispered. Mara's last harvest, Edric replied. Grown in soil blessed under moonlight. Watered with dew gathered before the crow caws. She never used it. Said it was not yet time. The knight nodded. It's time. Together, they mixed the dough. Water warmed above the hearth. Salt drawn from a bowl etched with old runes. A pinch of crushed rosemary. A drop of blood Edric's, willingly given. They kneaded as one. The dough was not like others, it pulsed beneath their fingers, alive. Like it remembered something older than kings. When it was ready, they shaped it into a single round loaf. No scoring. No pattern. Only the symbol pressed lightly with a burning stick, the split sun. The oven, Brunhild, groaned as they approached. Its fire flared without fuel. It welcomed the loaf. Edric slid it in. Outside, the drums stopped. Boots hit the ground. Voices shouted. Steel was drawn. Downstairs, Edric hissed. They descended into the vault beneath the bakehouse just as the front door shattered under a boot. Tomlin, white as ash, clutched the knight's arm. Above them, footsteps echoed. Then silence. The loaf had finished baking. Even in the cellar, they could feel it. The knight stepped forward, placed the broken pottery fragments, his and Edric's, into the basin. The heat from the hearth above seeped through the stones. Edric brought the loaf down and placed it in the center. The knight began to chant. Words that shook the walls. Words spoken not in voice, but in the rhythm of ancient fire. The loaf crumbled. A light burst from within it, white and blinding. The fragments of pottery began to melt, forming a new seal across the basin. The symbols glowed, then faded, but did not vanish. Then nothing. Silence. And then a scream above. A short clash. Then the unmistakable sound of something dying, not man, not beast. Only the creak of a body falling. They ascended. The bakehouse was in ruins. The guards were gone. Only Severan remained, his cloak scorched, his face twisted, lying still upon the floor. In his hand, a parchment burned halfway, an edict of cleansing. It would never be delivered. The knight looked to Edric. It is done. Edric didn't answer. He looked to the hearth, to the ashes within it. Then whispered, It is, for now. But deep beneath the basin, in cracks too small to be seen, something pulsed once. And then went still. Ruth behind the hollow flame.